Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. My name is Dave Carter. I'm from Turner Classic Movies. Oh, there I am. I'm Dave Carter. How are you? Thanks so much for being here tonight. And what a pleasure it is for me to say, please welcome Edgar Wright, Ron Mael, Russell Mael. This is so exciting because, Edgar, as I learned yesterday from you, how many times have the three of you been in the same room in the last 2 years?
This is only the second Q&A we've done in the same room together. We did like so many interviews for the film, but because of COVID, I was in London and they were in LA, and we managed to do one in London together. So this is only the second Q&A with the three of us. So
we're used to seeing Edgar 25 feet tall on the screen in the back of us.
Well, that actually leads me to my first question, because Ron and Russell, I know what cinephiles you are, as we even learned in the documentary. What has it been like in the few experiences I hope you've had to see this film on a big screen, to see yourselves on a big screen? How does it compare to seeing maybe Roller Coaster on the big screen 44 years ago?
Anything's better than seeing Roller Coaster on the big screen. So, no, what's I think most fun for us is to seeing it with an audience, is to see how people react to different parts of the documentary, because we're so close to it, and when we see it, it's just kind of us on a screen, way too big, but it's interesting to see the reaction to certain things, and also it's just really interesting to see how the film, when we were making it, or when Edgar was making it, we were thinking, oh, it's going to be telling it just about this band, about this band SPARKS, but then the reaction that we've found since it's been out has been that there's also these other stories that have arisen from it, other themes that we never thought were going to be a part of it, and the whole thing about, just creativity being the central thing of importance, and that all the peripheral stuff is kind of, you can't worry about it. But how Edgar framed all this in the film is something that, seeing it with an audience and getting reactions from the audience, has been something that's been a big takeaway from it. So it's to us, it became something more than just a documentary about SPARKS.
Edgar, I would love to hear the exact nature of your SPARKS fandom. When did it start? We're both children of the 80s. Was it at the moment? Was it more in retrospect? Was it a solitary love? Was it something you were able to share with lots of friends? What is exactly the nature and source of your fandom of this band?
Well, it started when I saw SPARKS on TV on Top of the Pops in the UK when I was 5 years old. I think I said this in the documentary, in fact. But and I remember being sort of I wouldn't say it was something where I was kind of taken aback by it, because I just remember that Ron and Russell like staring at me, and feeling that I'd done something wrong, at home. Because obviously, sort of, it's quite a diverting sort of proposition on the TV. It's very different from ABBA, who are all smiles, and not just Ron, but also Russell kind of staring right down the lens and not smiling. And I had two of the songs. My parents used to buy me and my brother these those Ronco K-Tel chart compilations, the ones with 10 tracks aside. So I actually had 2 SPARKS tracks when I was maybe about 5 or 6. I used to listen to them a lot, but in a pre-internet age where now you go searching for music, but before then music had to come to you. So it would only you would know about a band if something came into your kind of airspace. So I knew the 2 songs that I knew, and then it was something where I just had to kind of piece together what I knew of the band from what may or may not be in my record store, what may or may not be in the library or in a music magazine. So it was just that the band kept coming back into my life. I sort of, in my teenage years, I got into Bowie and Roxy Music, and then I heard other SPARKS tracks, and then as we've seen in the documentary, it had a big sort of comeback hit in the UK with When Do I Get to Sing My Way. When I saw that video, I was like, wow, this is the band who did Beat the Clock on Top of the Pops. So it wasn't really until later that I was able to sort of piece together the story. And in fact, that was kind of one of the reasons that I wanted to make it, is that, as you see in the documentary, Ron Russell have like a following all over the world, but not necessarily the same like album at the same time. And so one of the things I wanted to do with the film is give an overview of the whole amazing story.
Ron, do you remember what Edgar said to the two of you that led you to say, okay, this is the guy who we want to make this film with?
Well, partly it was just that it was Edgar that was asking, and so that made it easier. We have been approached by other people, but we have, just in a general sense, we have such a respect for Edgar as a director, and then also his passion for the band made him kind of stand out from anybody else. And then, but I think the thing that was really the main selling point, I mean, you hate to put it in terms of selling point, but just that he said that he felt that all of our periods were musically valid, and it wasn't that there was some golden age back in the dark ages of the 70s or 80s, that what we were doing now is as relevant musically as what we had ever done. And whatever anybody feels about the truth of the situation, that's the way that we approach what we're doing, and we felt completely at ease with putting the whole story in Edgar's hands, with him having that kind of belief in what we've always done. And it also helped that we didn't have to talk about ourselves, that Edgar has a big enough Rolodex where he can get pretty impressive people from all different areas to speak about what the band may have meant to him. And the one thing that we were really impressed with him, isn't a part of your question, but just with Edgar's interviewing skills, because that obviously isn't something that was ever on display in any of his other films, and he was able to put everybody that he spoke with in the film at such ease that it wasn't just kind of a stiff talking personality sort of answer. It was always like somebody conversing with you as you're watching the film, and kind of revealing things that maybe other people wouldn't have been able to get somebody to reveal. So, it was such an amazing experience. But at the moment that we said yes, we had no fears.
We had only hoped that it would, the two of us were saying to you, we hope it looks like an Edgar Wright film, though. We were worried that Edgar might just make this a boring documentary with no relation to what he does normally in his good films. And, but he pleasantly surprised us, and it has the whole kinetic feel of Edgar's films, even though it's a documentary. And music always plays a big part in all of Edgar's films, and it does, up to the present with his latest film, Last Night in Soho. Music is a big feature of the film. And so in any case, doing a documentary, it was new for Edgar, I think, but it was as close as it could also be to being an Edgar Wright looking and feeling film too.
I was going to preface as well, when I did actually approach Ron Russell, it was actually like a night, I remember 4 years ago, because I think it was October 2017. I was at a SPARKS gig at the El Rey on Wilshire.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And in the lead up to this, I'd started to kind of say to people, I hadn't necessarily thought about making a documentary. I just thought that somebody should make a documentary about SPARKS. So I've been saying to my friends, anybody who would listen, why hasn't somebody made a documentary about SPARKS? SPARKS would be such a great music documentary. I've watched so many music documentaries about bands that are like a 20th as influential as SPARKS. That'd be such a great film. And eventually at this gig, in the balcony just before it started, I was with my friend, the director Phil Lord, who's also a SPARKS fan, and I was saying the same thing to him, and I said, somebody's got to make a documentary about SPARKS. And Phil was the one who finally said, "You should make the documentary about Sparks." And I was like, "Yes, I will." And after the gig, I asked them. So that's how it all started.
Well, for the audience, it's very exciting to see this who's who of music, from Beck to Flea to Duran Duran, all kind of talking about how much they love the band. I'd be curious to know from all three of you, from your different viewpoints, Edgar, who were you most excited said yes to doing an interview? And Russell and Ron, who were you most excited that maybe you didn't realize was such a fan of Sparks until you found out that they were doing an interview for the film? So Edgar, to start with you.
I think the person I was most excited about getting in the movie, and also maybe the most nervous to interview, was Todd Rundgren, because it was one of those things where, I kind of could obviously knew everything about Sparks, but sometimes when you're talking to a really prolific artist, like an artist like Todd is as prolific as Ron and Russell, you're starting to panic and thinking, please don't veer off Sparks. I've prepped Sparks. Let's not veer off, because so it was actually an amazing thing. And then the other thing about it, which is actually on the Blu-ray and the extras, is that Todd had not seen Ron and Russell for, I think, 45 years. And so when I told Ron and Russell that Todd was coming in, you guys said, well, should we come down? And I said, well, and it was, so I basically reunited them on camera. It's on the kind of the Blu-ray, which is an amazing thing that sort of like, you were in the next room, and at the end of the interview I said to Todd, I said, when was the last time you saw Ron and Russell? He goes, oh, when we made the album. And I said, what would you say if I said they were behind that door? And he goes, no way. So it was like a proper, if you watch the Blu-ray extras, it's on there like a 20-minute like featurette of just these, that for me was the most exciting moment.
No, for us too. It was amazing seeing Todd after the, Todd was the first person that ever gave Sparks an opportunity when everybody else passed on it. So but we hadn't seen Todd since he produced our first album in 1972, and so to then see him, then he kind of wondered, why haven't we spoken to him since then? Did we say something wrong during those sessions way back then? But it turned out it wasn't the case, just both of our paths never crossed. But we also just the variety of people that Edgar was able to elicit to speak was really surprising to us, happily surprising that it was, really amazing musicians from all different sort of genres who we, to have Flea talking about Sparks. We always think of the Chili Peppers, so God, they're too, we like the Chili Peppers, but it's kind of, more, I don't know, they're rock and it's edgy and it's nasty, and he wouldn't like us, and it turns out, he spoke so eloquently, Flea, about the band. And then just having, someone like Neil Gaiman speaking about Sparks, we had absolutely no idea that Neil Gaiman knew we were on the map, and to hear him speaking about, analyzing album cover artwork for us was a real treat. And on the Blu-ray extras, there's Neil Gaiman is reciting the lyrics to two of our songs, reading them, and it's really amazing for us to hear him doing that.
Anything to add to that, Ron?
I mean, it was just an odd experience for us watching the film when we first saw it completed, because we work in such a kind of a bubble, and we kind of don't have any real feeling for what is going on around us as far as the reaction to what we're doing. So to see so many people that we have such great respect for, not only musicians, but people from other artistic fields that were kind of there for different times, but for extended periods of times following what we were doing, it was really inspiring to us.
One of the things I love so much about this is that, Edgar, Ron and Russell are not just the subjects of your documentary, they feel like co-conspirators in a way, co-mischief makers, as evidenced particularly by those Sparks facts at the end. Was that something that was part of your initial pitch to them, that you wanted this film to have that as an aspect, or is that something that the three of you kind of came up with as you were working on it?
Well, I'm not sure if it's ever something we really talked about. But I mean, I guess my sort of brief in a way was that I thought the film should have the tone of what Sparks are, you know, what Ron and Russell's sense of humor is in their perspective. So I wanted to make the movie in the sort of the tone of Sparks, essentially. And I was thinking about this afterwards because it's something where, you know, we'd sort of gotten to know each other maybe a couple of years before I asked about the documentary. And I remember even the first time we met for breakfast at your house, we immediately sort of started talking about films and other things that we liked, and you know, just getting to know Ron and Russell, we all have a shared sense of humor. But then as I started to think about it later, I was thinking, well, in a weird way, I wonder, it's just like, have I learned a sense of humor from you guys, having listened to the records, like growing up. So it is something where I just wanted the film to have the sensibility of Ron and Russell. And then in some cases where there were things where I would come up with a premise and give them the ball to run with it, like the frequently asked questions section at the start. You know, I wrote the questions, but Ron and Russell, you know, did the answers. Or, and then when we were, the thing at the very end with the fake facts was something that came up during, because the thing that you guys used to do with your like fan magazines in the 70s is put out, again, pre the internet, before anybody could fact check anything, put out fake facts, like that Doris Day was their mother, like things that people couldn't check. So I sort of said, when we were talking about, I said, why don't we do like, put out a load of bullshit facts at the end of the film. So Ron and Russell wrote those and performed those essentially.
Yeah. I mean, we got pretty used to lying through our career because we did so many interviews through the years, and it was really intense for us in the 70s where we were kind of new to it, and we kind of got tired of answering the same questions with the same answers. So Doris Day became our mother, and those sort of things became kind of just entertainment for us. And you know, it kind of is depressing in a certain kind of way because they're like German lexicons of rock, and it lists like that Doris Day is our mother, and just so people, even then, fake news was an issue.
Wasn't one of the other facts that you used to be hand models?
Yeah, we were hand models, and we also did a lot of modeling when we were young for Sears catalogs, and so you know you're in a position after you lie like that. I mean, it's not a malicious kind of lie. It's just trying to make a legend somehow. And so, but when you don't want to insult people after a while by saying, you know, that's not true, so you kind of go along with it, and then after a while, like it's been written about 25 times that you were a model in Sears catalogs when you were young.
I love it. Russell, was there any footage that was kind of unearthed by Edgar and his team of researchers? I'm sure you had dozens and dozens of people on this hugely budgeted film. Was there any footage that shows up in this documentary that you hadn't seen before?
Lou, there's some shows in Europe, some TV shows I think that we hadn't seen, at least we hadn't seen them since we did them back in the dark ages and stuff. But we fortunately, part of the thing was that we never throw away anything, so we have trunkfuls of you know, just archival stuff that was shipped to London. So Edgar and the team over there could just sift through all of this stuff, and then they had really great people as well that were able to contact all these TV stations around the world and all that sort of stuff. So a lot of it was fresh to us in any case, that we hadn't seen it since we shot a lot of these things.
Edgar has such an amazing research group of people, and they were able to unearth, you know, everything. But there's kind of one holy grail. We appeared on a Swedish TV show with Jacques Tati one time in the 70s, and we've been trying ever since then to get that piece of footage, and we've approached them personally, and obviously Edgar's people would have, you know, incredible ins, but that's the only thing that we haven't been able to unearth.
One thing that was funny to me was Russell's UCLA short Très Serious, the French New Waves booth. I had never seen that before, and the thing that really shocked me when I watched it was I had made exactly the same film when I was 18 at art college. And I saw it and I said to Russ, I said, oh my God, I'm going to send you what I did when I was at college. It was basically the same movie.
It was. It's amazing. Edgar's title was better, though. You were Au bout de lemon soufflé.
But it was basically exactly the same movie, so I guess it was meant to be that we were going to make a film with the same sense of humor.
Similar sensibilities, and we didn't even know each other. So.
You guys are psychic triplets. Russell and Ron, I know how much films mean to you. Obviously, it's talked about a lot in the documentary, and the two of you have had such a interesting, to put it euphemistically, relationship with the film industry, and we learned about the disappointments with Tati or Tim Burton. So now here you are with two films out, this one and Annette. When you think back to it, what led you not to give up on dreams of making films in any capacity, either documentary capacity or narrative, and how rewarding has it been this last year?
Oh, it's what we enjoy doing. So I think, despite any of the previous setbacks, we are just so focused on working, and that's all we do. That's what we enjoy doing. So I guess when when Edgar approached us about doing the documentary, we always think, well, what if it doesn't happen? But when we were all on the plane together going to Tokyo for the very first thing we shot, it became real, and then just the Annette movie too. It was something that was 8 years of working on it with the French director Léos Carax, and just it takes people with a lot of you have to find people that are just so focused on what they're doing to make things actually happen. And Edgar's obviously one of those people, and in the case of Annette, Léos Carax, is the only thing he focused on, the only project he had for 8 years, and we worked on it together for that long. And it happens. Some things happen and some don't, but it just seemed like for whatever reason things have been coming together for us lately.
Obviously, Ron, since this movie came out, the two of you have not been out and about in a pre-COVID capacity. But I'd be curious to know, in as much as you are hearing from people, what has the difference in the reaction to you been from before this film came out to after the film came out, when people do realize who you are or want to say something? Are you noticing it more? Are you noticing that people are saying different things when they do see you? What has the change been?
The main change is quantity, I think, because we've so many people that had no knowledge of the band, largely through the good graces of Edgar, now are aware of us and have gone back. And the thing that we take great pride in is, we really have just great respect for people that have followed us, through thick and thin. But it's kind of new people and young people that had no awareness. And I think through the documentary that there have been so many more of those people, and it's an interesting thing now where there kind of isn't a history of music. It's kind of 25 albums are all out at one time, and just because of the internet and streaming and all, so people are able to kind of see you like in a different way, where it isn't like waiting 12 months, but these people that are new and coming in, it's like all of a sudden they're being barraged by 25 albums, and so it's just exciting for us. Where, in particular, when young people that obviously like a certain age group of band are also kind of appreciating our music in the same way that they appreciate bands of younger folk.
And finally, Edgar, have you had a particular moment of pride where you've heard something or someone has said something to you after seeing this film where you've thought, yes, I've really helped to kind of spread the Sparks gospel through this film? Or is it just a general sense of pride?
I think it's a similar thing to what Ron said. It's when, it's great when people who like, I sort of made it for everybody. I made it for people who like sort of like super hardcore Sparks fans, or for people who know a little bit about Sparks but not a lot, and for people who've never heard the band. So it was always like, I knew that in making the movie, it had to be an introduction as much as a celebration. And sometimes I think even some great music documentaries, they assume prior knowledge. And I think sometimes when I see some documentaries, I'm thinking, well, if I was 18 and I'd never heard this band, would this film let me fall in love with them? So that's what I really sort of tried to do. So then when you hear somebody watch the documentary and saying, where has this band been all my life? Oh my God. Like, that's the best feeling.
I love it. It's such a pleasure to see all of you. I have one request just on behalf of the film company, just for COVID compliance reasons. We're going to let our special guests leave the room before we get up, just to keep everyone distanced. But I want to thank Ron and Russell and Edgar for being here, and congratulations on this wonderful movie. And thanks to you all.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you all.